Fornhan.Ponsan, enroll now and become part of the story. Now, today let's have some fun. With the tournament coming up, let's see if these wannabe champions are worthy of our time. Let's start with something simple. We have split into 3 teams of 6, 6, 7. We have only 2 of the Firhosha, so one of you will have to do double duty. And let's see if you can show us some of the champion ability, by avoiding being caught by a bunch of kids who would rather sit before a screen all day than moving a muscle. I guess I will do double then, but only against the 2 6 groups, and I want to choose the groups. Gangxin did not seem all that happy over this, but I assume he and Lei were told about this beforehand. Going from Gangxin's reaction, did the interaction I had with Firhosha spread? With how many of the other werewolves came with them, is it not a surprise that would not stay a secret, if just through over-listening random chatter? However, was there only me, Lapis and Tem in this police class, so he would be forced to choose also people outside of our class for the team. I have no objections with it, so you will also go first then, I assume, to get a break in between. Oh, and don't forget, class, this will be going into your notes, so don't just stand around and let your teammates do all the work. I have sharp eyes. The first team chosen by Gangxin included neither me, nor Lapis, nor Tem. He did not say what the other 2 teams would be, but I had to assume that the 3 of us would be in the last team. You would assume that tag with the 6 versus 1 would be easy in such an enclosed arena, with nothing but flat ground as his gym had, and the first 6 did act accordingly at first. 6 are not enough to cover the area from wall to wall, creating an impenetrable wall that would encroach him slowly, but it wasn't far off. The time set for this was just 2 minutes, but a simple strategy like this was found quickly after they made sure there would be no chances they ever catch him by just trying to run after. There was probably also some pride at play here that motivated them to try to win, as the threat of bad grades could hardly be a strong incentive. As they started in the middle, was the length of the gym also already cut in half. They did not run either, to not break formation or simply because they thought this would win anyways. Gangxin did amuse themselves at first with just waiting for them to come. He clearly predicted the simplest strategy to be used, and was observing for now. That was something that could not be said for the 6 walking towards him. Surefied of their victory did they pay little attention to Gangxin. That showed once they came into grasping range. It may had seemed as if Gangxin was simply randomly moving back and forth at the back wall, but that could have been not further from the truth. The reality of the matter was that he had evaluated every pair of 2, what gaps was the widest, who seemed the most distracted, and what type of people they seemed to be. Within less than a second did he swap from a casual relaxed stance to dashing forward right between 2 who, as to be expected, had such a slow reaction time that this sudden dash was something impossible for them to respond to. It was not simply him being faster and stronger. He moved with a goal in mind, and without wasting efforts on movement that wouldn't help him to get to that goal. It really showed the large gaps that stand between those fit and those who have trained to fight. If they had been able to cover the entire length, sure, that would work, but the second there was a gap was their weakness, and weakness allows someone to win. The tables are not turned. Gangxin was standing on the other side. giving him all the freedom of movement he could ever wish for. There was still time on the clock, enough to simply try the same strategy again. The issue was that the main problem with the strategy was not solved by simply repeating it. It was expected for Gangxin to breach the wall a second time. This was expectedly making them lose their coordination and composure. Some could say that this was a worse outcome for Gangxin. Now, and with not much time left, did the strategy become get him, somehow. At no point with such a strategy would Gangxin get caught, but he would need to run far more. You could see that at no point did he had the fear of losing, but as he specifically had to do this twice, was this amount of exertion a problem for a second game. It was a sight to behold, seeing a group of 6 grown people being made to look like a bunch of children, by a single person doing nothing but running away. Now that's 2 minutes. As to be expected, no one get close to catching him. I'm pretty sure I almost had him once. Did he get at any point near you? Not even close. There you have it. So the next 7 will be you, as of Mr. Gangxin. Damuni Chen Changyang. Just put all the sporty ones in my team, but even with the 7 of you will you not get me, so try your best and fail miserably. As to be expected, did Gangxin leave us 3 up to last. We would probably be treated like any other person here, from just that forced greeting we had thanks to Miss Chulu. As it stands, was that however not being considered for these team rankings. It would only be natural that there had been some interest been awoken after my encounter with Firhosha, and the one who got the lot to pick the teams was the one who got the chance. So, what are your chances of winning this? Nothing. We will lose by so much that it can't even be called a contest, and you will see why right now, I would assume, as 7 would breach the threshold. But we are not up against him, and instead the other one. 2 entire minutes of catch, and Gangxin not once focused properly on what any one particular person did. Simply having the overview was enough to win. So here's playing with weights, where we can't even keep up with 6 times the fire force. More people isn't always an upside. The more people, the more coordination you need to not get into another's way. There would be no need for me to explain to Lapis in detail what I meant. Yin Lai was forced into the predicament of the 7th person, making the approach of the first group far more efficient. It is true that he only wins if no one has caught him after 2 minutes, but there is more than one way to preventing getting caught. The rules to getting caught are the main thing at question here. What even constitutes as getting caught? Going from Mr. Jason, can I say that he will stretch the definition quite a lot. Being caught most often is defined through hand contact, so all you need to do is to prevent those hands from ever reaching you. Yin Lai went at this problem with a completely different mindset, immediately visible from the moment it started. He was a predator, singling out one individual of the pack. Even of the more athletic people we had was in a 1 versus 1 scenario then no chance. Going to the gym won't do you anything to fight against someone who has learned martial arts. Knowing martial arts won't help you to fight against someone who has mastered them. Of us, not even all could be categorized in the first group, where we had to fight the third. Yin Lai had laser focus on the one person that was the most open. Gangxin simply looked out for the opening between them. What could someone do skilled enough to evade 6 people simultaneously when fighting head-on? In the end, was this however still a game? In the real life, would he win? No question asked. But right now, he was with 1 life against the boss, meant to not be beaten this early in the game. But sometimes, what the developers think of as an unwinnable fight just needs someone skilled enough to prove the opposite. He couldn't wait for them to group up As the denser the group is, the harder it is to attack a singular individual. Waiting for the right moment when one person is out of reach of the other, don't let them focus on your approach and go in only when you think you can go for the kill. Finally, don't allow yourself to be open after the strike. But he did gamble on a correct guess on Mr. Jason's response. His better strategy to not getting caught was in the end quite simple. When there was no one hunting you, you will never get caught. It must have been quite a shocking experience for my classmate, when suddenly Yin-Lai was standing before him, grabbing his arms, twisting him around, and used a strike on the neck to temporarily knock him out. If his gamble would pay off, would he gain even more than just the obvious? How's that allowed? If you can't prevent him from doing that in a 7-1 fight, I've decided that is your problem. It can't possibly be legal. Accidents can happen, and it's not as if he's hurt. Just a little headache perhaps. And your time is ticking, so perhaps less talking, more acting. I guess it's over now. What? No, they still have a chance. They just needed to give it their all. It is not only about what they can, but also what they want. Getting near Yin-Lai means possibly also getting knocked out, and most people do not want that. An Herculean task to find out that in the end your princess is another castle. As predicted, did not much happen for the rest of the time. Mostly did they put in their efforts on protecting themselves over catching Yin-Lai. He also did not try to find out how far he could go, so it became a completely unimpressive game. Also did those who already had their round help out the one that was knocked out to get to the infirmary, just in case, and Mr. Jason had nothing to say against that. That's 2 minutes! So it surely has felt like far more to those of you who still stand. I hope you have all now learned that you should never act on your own. Huixi knew he was that much stronger than you, so there was never any danger. But when you later on face magical creatures that do not have good intentions in mind, is it important for you to never assume you could overcome this on your own. Now was the time for us to go next for the last round. It was for me to figure out how to approach this. If I could choose 6 people out of our class, I am sure we could win. But the most important difference was in the mindset. Those of our class all hated losing and give everything to win. But right now I am dealing with 3 that aren't this unnaturally obsessed with winning. And now show me what it is that could beat a headstrong werewolf into submission. This round would be different than the first. Gangxin would not play around for this one. I could feel that he was out for blood, but he also was far too focused on me as a result. We gotta come up with a plan for this. I'm sure we get a huge bonus when we actually catch him. All we can do is what everyone else did, isn't it? It's not like we have any chance. Impossible, I would call it not. Improbable, that's more accurate. Someone convinced in his unbreakable armor will not even check if it has cracks. Then what do? We'll wait 2 minutes. What a stupid plan is that? I see, your idea is that he will not be able to win, so why not use all of the time we got for one attempt instead? Quality over quantity. You sure are smarter than you give off, Lapis. Oh, I could fall for you, but that would be quite a steep fall with my height. All we need is to encirculate him in a way where there is no opening. There aren't enough to cover all the space the gym width, but we can for sure cover it around the edges. He won't be going to them for that reason, but that's for when we get to that part. But couldn't he just, knock us out like the other ones did? We are not meant to win, and that's only working if there's no one in reach to get in him term. Even the world's best fighter takes some time to disarm another person. Also see it like this. If you plan on taking him on once within the 2 minutes, will he never have the need to do any stunts like that? I knew that I was mostly just sitting against the wall. Those other three were as concerned about what had happened last round than those of last round, even when Gangxin did not do anything like that in his first round. But it was not as if I expected to win anyways. So, what is your grand strategy? This is not a 1 vs 1, so you need a far more complex strategy. What if I said we simply win? Is that a good strategy? Well, that depends on what happens in the end, I would say. The start of the game is always simple. Abuse that we can only lose through our timeout. 2 rows or 3, displays to encroach them far more efficient. The idea of a wall isn't bad, but if all are in the same height, do you only need to find one opening to pierce through. It may be that there are smaller and fewer openings, but as a trade is it only one needed. If you displace, however, are there far larger gaps, only in theory. It is true that the gaps itself are bigger, but you cannot access the gaps of the second row without going through the person right in front of it. It is also not as if the larger gaps in the first row would help you, as now those in the second row have far more time to respond to where you want to break through on their line of defense. Naturally, the edges are the weakest part, especially the one where the first row borders the edge of the field. While the wall is 100% impenetrable, can it also not catch you, so you only need to deal with one person. And even if the nearest person of the second row has more time to react, would they need to get to run 2 gaps worth of length, which is, even with the added reaction time, not realistic. The true trick lies within if he were to decide to do this. It is not as if he can decide where he spawns. If he decides to go to the sides, can simply the rest of the group dancing up, and cost of losing complete opening on the other side. But it is not as if he could simply go over there faster than we could. In the end, is it a game of chicken. Every action of us has a winning counteraction of him, but every action of him has a winning counteraction of us. What is it going to be, Gangxin? As expected, he would wait out to see what we had concocted. He shuffled back and forth to see how we would react and what the overall plan is, but also to see how well the gears turn. The machine in the end is only as good as its part. But in the end, I already knew where he wanted to go. From the start, he wanted to look what I had to offer, so he would go wherever I was. You sure are taking your time. At this rate, all I need to get through once, and this is over without me even moving a muscle. Well, entertain me. What will you do when it comes down to the only moments that will count? Gangxin did not even pretend any attempt of getting through. All he did was waiting. It was fortunate that the other 3 did not attempt anything out of this. They probably simply didn't care either way. Fortunate for me, regardless of what it was, as I only needed them to exist as a deterrent. Come on, do something, I'm getting bored over here. Well, I guess I miscalculated to some degree, but not in a way that it couldn't be used. Being close enough did the taunting of Gangxin get to the other 3, to attempt at least once. They could have tried standing next to him, and would have lost that fight, but the fact that they didn't stand next to him was better. Once he's past them, they are no longer an issue, so having them at some distance, still in the way, meant that he needed to account for them. In the end was the focus still on me, which meant all I needed was to guide him to where he would be in a face-off with me, and ignoring the others up to a bare minimum. It was not as if I could talk, but I could have trust in Tem and Lapis. Lapis isn't the most athletic, but he is clever, and Tem isn't the most reasonable, but he is up to his feet. Go get me. See for yourself what I have to offer. So, you're coming directly at me, instead of choosing to find a strategy where you're simply abandoning reason and hope to overcome me in raw skill. Very well, show me the might that can stop a werewolf. a meaningless taunt, but it did got his attention. Running at him and away from where Tem and Lapis were. If he wants to fight me, then you have to look over here. He passed by the first three without any big issues, but now there was me in his direct path, and from the left was Lapis to cover that angle as well. What was next was for me to do a full stop and back off, just a few steps away for him. I won't catch him, but this way would he not be able to pass me as well. Lapis also got what I was up to, and he also backed off. To the right the wall, before me, to the left Lapis, behind the other three. But there was one person missing. And you thought that would work? Of course, we never had any chance. Tem was fast, Tem was small, and Tem had given a good plan. But Gangxin was simply that much better. Instead of choosing the for us obvious looking option of passing by me on the right, did he choose to go left, with 3 simple moves through Tem in our direction and just use the wide open flank that existed to the left. With that was it over. Too much time had passed for the strategy, and there was no chance that we could actually catch him in a direct contest. It was also not due to a lack of trying, as Tem was showing. Despite him being smaller and younger, was Tem faster than Gangxin. That just didn't matter in a world where Tem had to touch Gangxin with his hands. To cement this, when the time was about to run out, did Gangxin simply force Tem on the ground, sat on his back, and no one else bothered to even attempt getting him. You knew that you couldn't do and choose correctly. However, with eyes like those, anyone could tell what is going on. I don't need to see where someone is. If you see where they are, your eyes tell as much of a story as the rest of your body. Now that the game was over, did Tem try to sneak up on Gangxin to hit him with the surprise attack, but even like that, did he simply disable Tem holding his hands folded behind his back, and all of that on the sideline without even paying much attention to him. Give it up, Tem. We can't beat such a monster. It is not nice calling someone a monster, but I will give you the benefit of the doubt that you mean my physical abilities. What do you mean with that? You know, it is really rude to make someone spell it out like that. What? I don't really know what you are talking about. That I am a fate doman. You don't even remember the name. Flying heads, remember? They are just boring humans. Why would I remember some fancy name for that? Sorry. I got you completely wrong. You are quite the weird bunch. The lot of you, instead of just him. The chit-chat was stopped by Mr. Gangxin, who has clapped his hands and asked everyone to gather. He had waited for a bit for those who brought the knocked out student to the infirmary to come back. The student knocked out already woke up again, but still would stay there for at least the rest of the class. Now then, ladies, the time of self-reflection has ended. We all should be back and refreshed, so let's start to do something else. You can hardly be warmed up from that little tussle. The Johanna-Open is about more than just physical abilities. Let's see how good these two are with weapons. It's time for some dodgeball. You two versus all of them. And to make it fair, we will start with only one ball. From then we will increase the amount of balls until you ladies get them out. Standard rules: if you get clutched and the ball hits the ground after, you're out. If it is caught, the thrower is out. Who's out is on the outskirts of the opposing field and can get in by hitting someone. Some may think that a game like this was designed to look how long both of them could last, but he did not say we play until they have lost. All he ever said is that the balls get increased until they would lose. But what if, on our side, the game wouldn't even last that long? Depending on how fast the bouts were added, could they very well also win this game of 2 versus 19. But this game was far more stacked on our side. When the game started, they absolutely dominated. One throw to get one person out, and it was easy enough for them to dodge our throws. Once we got to 4 out, did Mr. Gangxin add another ball, which just led to more domination from those two, but once we hit 8 out, did they hurt Sin, and they couldn't easily hit someone. What should be mentioned was how hard they threw. Despite at them being there 19 possible people who could catch the ball that hit someone, did no one react in time. With the third ball in play, did Mr. Gangxin also add the rule that those out are allowed to steal balls to prevent those two from simply hoarding them. This put enough pressure on them to get the first out by a back hit from one person who was out. This, however, seemed to be a grave mistake, as now where one was out, could they abuse the rule to steal to the fullest. The rule was simple. If there was a ball off the opponent's field, can you go in and take it, but only throw if you are back outside of the field. This meant that the instant the ball got thrown by the still in play Gangxin, did Yinlai ready to get in and take the ball before we had any chance of picking up, so he got easily back in. The real game began with 4 balls, as those two now barely could hold on to all balls at the same time, and nothing said you couldn't steal out of the other player's hands. Once the 5th ball was added, was the game over. With 2 people could they not trade favorably. Those in front were one issue that was easily dealt with, but those on all the other sides were closer and from more directions, and on top, if they did hit, would they get in. This led to trading back and forth more than just a reducing of our numbers, ultimately getting both of them out at the same time. Still was this not an easy victory for us. Phew, that was something else. And where we are drowning in puddles, they are dry as a desert. They did more than all of us combined and still had more energy to spare. They are not the only ones with surplus of energy here. 10? Those brothers, all 3, they are just built different. I got it. Maybe the true difference is that the smaller they are, the more energy you get. Years of growth wasted. But it really is good to have them around. Little Dory was so stiff before, but now she just had to accept that no one is gonna follow the rules. But that isn't a bad thing either. People like her are needed to keep everything together. I know better than most, I can assure you that. This marked the end of this face-off we had. They definitely seemed to be more friendly than the first encounter we had. But what they said was true. They simply will go back and we will never see again. Still, it was good to have this encounter.